What is up, everybody? Solomon here. Super excited to be with Genfinity, interviewing a multitude of builders across Web3. Here we are once again. We've got Constellation Network with us today. This is one of the hypercasts that we do here. A huge shout out to Constellation for sponsoring these types of content, along with the other content that we do across different ecosystems. Benjamin Diggles and Dave Berg. So we've got this Chief Strategy Officer and the CPO with us here today. We're going to be talking about digital evidence. I told Benjamin before we started, I have zero script, but I know that these guys rolled out digital evidence as a product a handful of months ago, and there's been a lot of traction around it. And we're going to be kind of walking through what that represents. How you guys doing today?
Great,
sir.
Yeah. Well, so I guess one of the things we'll get into here is, who wants to kind of give an overview of what digital evidence represents? I mean, I think we're at a point where we're seeing so many things across not only crypto but society where authenticity, and I said this like maybe a week or so ago, is almost one of the scarcest assets that we have. Truth, right? So I think that to be able to preserve that authenticated on chain is very important, and it's starting to lead into where we're kind of going as a society, especially with AI. But let's get an overview of what digital evidence represents. Dave or Benjamin, whichever one of you guys wants to take the broad overview for people.
Yeah, I'll set the table and I'll hand it over to Dave here, just because I have a few more years under my belt with Constellation as one of the co-founders. So yeah, Ryan, appreciate you, dog. Thanks for putting this together. We're always happy to share this. And for those that have been tuning in to sort of this beat the drum effort we've been doing around digital evidence, the reason why we keep bringing it up and kind of keep repeating some of the same things as we mature this product is because we believe that it is a demonstrable shift in not only Constellation's efforts over the years to really concretely put this stuff into the ground, but also, to your point, Ryan, just it's coming at a time where we're coming out of the promise of the ages of the super information highway, or which the internet promised all of this great insight and connection, and then came the algorithms, and then that sort of kind of made things even weirder, harder to track what was real, what wasn't. Bots were coming in for machine learning, and now we've got AI. So to your point, authenticity it's really hard to find a signal in all the noise. So those that have been on this journey for a long time with us, we've always been touting this idea of validated data to really force like authenticity and bring forth the promise of automation. And so because of this is why we worked, with the Department of Defense to effectively, perfect this product and then bring it to the commercial space. And that happened in late March of this year. And I want to give a big shout out to Dave Berg, who's really the mastermind by bringing this product, because he is a chief product officer with a ton of experience. But Dave, maybe share just a little bit about why you think that this is such a good time for this, and why now digital evidence.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So like you mentioned, I've been with Constellation almost a year now, so a little bit less, considerably less than Benjamin. When I came in, though, I mean, this like you're saying, the super highway of information and the loss of trust, the loss of truth, and trying to figure out as the technology keeps advancing at breakneck speed, where do we find a buoy? Where do we find the spotlight in the storm to figure out, okay, can I trust this, and at what level can I trust this? So that's a very real thing. And blockchain, not just Constellations, but most blockchain can provide great utility there. And so when I joined, you mentioned I've got engineering, mathematics in my background, and obviously a lot of product management. Started to really try to understand what was going on here, and of the great technology that Constellation Network represents, so much of it is open source. I really started to trying to understand mapping that user journey. Like, how do people tap into this? How do they get access to this so they can solve those hard problems, right? The identity, the trust, the agentic communication, all that other good stuff. And it was non-trivial, right? You gotta spin up nodes, you gotta manage these things, you gotta do the metagraph, you gotta define your rules. And some really smart people can do that, but everybody else can't, right? And so when you're really looking at who's going to use this. They're not all protocol wizards or Web3 fans. They're people trying to solve all their problems out there. And I said, well, how can we make this accessible to them? How can we put a bow on it? Even if we're not representing the full strength of this very flexible, secure, easy to configure metagraph, what if we just give them the ability to put stuff on chain, right? And so let's, for lack of a better description, let's dumb it down. We'll manage the service. We'll do everything we can to make it as easy as possible. We'll serve up a RESTful API. So anybody with any level of technical competence, or even using a AI coding assistant, can access this and see what people do with it, right? And so that was the original hypothesis here. Let's open this up. Let's try to expand our market by making it easier to access this technology and see what people really want to do with it.
I think that's, I think especially in an industry like crypto and blockchain, where, what's interesting to me, what you guys are doing is that like, you're actually trying to figure out who's using this stuff. Like, like literally, like as bare bones as it gets, crypto and blockchain is an industry like legitimately built on smoke and mirrors. I'm sure most people that have been here for a handful of years realize that a lot of the key performance indicators that we're supposed to care about for crypto are, sometimes just paid for by networks, and, whatever stats we're supposed to care about, most people are going to care about the stats we're supposed to care about right now, 10 years from now. Nobody's going to ever, we're not sitting here talking about TCP IP, even though we're, using the internet. So what I think is interesting is just, let's figure out how real users are using this tech. Let's meet people where they're at. I go back to what you guys did with PACA from the social kind of attention economy standpoint. I go to Upsider, which kind of tied that stuff in too. And now I go to digital evidence, where it's like, okay, we have a big problem with what is real, what is authentic, and what isn't. And let's make it as stupid simple as possible for people to actually be, to be able to leverage the tech in a way that makes sense. Like, they want to just snapshot something and here it lives on chain.
And that's what we have effectively done. If you want to go and share my slides, Bud, I would love to kind of parlay off of that, right? Like, to Dave's point, making this dead simple, and we're excited to sort of show you what that means, right? Dave, I'm going to hand it over to you before I share sort of how I approached the API when I got it cut to me, but maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the lessons learned and your vision behind the Digital Evidence Builder program.
Be happy to. One of the, I guess, lessons I learned early in my career as a product manager, and just have a lot of background with enterprise, everything from startups to Fortune 100 companies, is that I could do all the market research I want. I can do all the engineering I want. I can build the perfect pot that boils fast, keeps its temperature. It's the best pot you can ever imagine. And you sell it and you get it out in the market, somebody flips it over and turns it into a drum. You're like, I didn't even think of that, right? So I keep that lesson, that humility in mind always when I'm trying to design product, when I'm trying to deliver these things. And with the Builder program, that was top of mind. We want to make it, like you mentioned, meet people where they are, give them access to it, and nurture them. And so one of the lessons we learned was, this is really cool. Like the typical things around using blockchain with security, using it obviously with crypto. You have examples with Upsider, using it with accounting. We're going to talk about a company that's doing some pretty cool stuff there. But then all the other use cases that people were like, oh, I've been wanting to do this, but I didn't have the money, I didn't have the time, I didn't have the competence to spin up my own blockchain or my Metagraph or this or that. But with this API, I can just, vibe code it in no time, and there I go. And so we're seeing things around art, around different use cases for real world assets that I didn't even imagine. Entertainment, people locking in their intellectual property to protect themselves, and then they can layer on a smart contract for royalties. All kinds of things just across the spectrum, so many different markets, so many different verticals. People pounced on this. And that was really rewarding for us to see the versatility in this tool that we're trying to then build off of, right?
So I want to briefly interject because I think this is super cool. And I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
like coming from the position of like how I kind of attempted to build my account was through like literally like deep diving and trying to find PDFs that nobody else could find and all this stuff. You can't imagine how many times I've seen other influencers or people try to like take screenshots of the stuff that I found and then use it for nefarious conspiracy theory purposes on crypto Twitter. And I'm just like, oh my God. I'm like, I posted that I found and did a video on that document in 2020. And now I'm seeing it in 2025 about some like crazy conspiracy theory. Anyways, I'm going off topic, but sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No, that's exactly it. Right. I, quickly coded up an app to fingerprint images, and people quickly took that and started like fingerprinting all the images on their website. So now they've got some evidence there. So use cases like that, we could have spent who knows how much time researching, planning, all that good stuff. But the purpose of the builder program is to help people build, right? They're going to come with those cool ideas. We're going to do the best we can to facilitate that and nurture that and encourage it. And then hopefully go along with them on their journey. And so I think Benjamin has got an example he wanted to talk about where he actually, we don't like dog food. We like to drink our own champagne around here. So I guess I'll give Benjamin the mic and let him talk about his journey here.
You're muted.
Still on mute.
Still muted.
First time here, right? So yeah, I'm super pumped about this. I just want to share that, I'm going to read this, even though reading off a slide is super lame, but I put this into Cursor, and people know that I am not a developer, even though I can get my hands pretty dirty and do, some pretty wild technical stuff. But none of this required any coding. So I'm just really trying to put some pressure on folks that are watching this. Get an API and get weird, right? Go into ChatGPT, ask where is the most contested data? What are some free or open APIs I can use either at a low or no cost? The one I decided just to do this, and I cut this the day after Dave launched Digital Evidence Builder Program. I want to create a digital fingerprint on Constellation Network's Digital Evidence API. I want this fingerprint to be a digital paper trail showing every time the National Weather Service updates Denver's weather. The idea is that the National Weather Service API will put the Denver weather data as an update to their service when this happens. I'd like Constellation's Digital Evidence to put that event on chain representing the day, time, and weather update. And so then I said, here's the document links I have available, as well as the proto file that I was given by Dave and crew when I signed up for my API. There's all the links to the API documentation, and there's my credentials. I put some X's so folks wouldn't steal my API key, but you get it. That's it. I got my organization name, Mr. Diggles. After I got it started, it said, hey, we need a few more things. So I added some additional instructions. I want a support for signed fingerprints. I want the interval to be the fastest as possible that it'll allow. Check for time, location, day, and temperature, and please implement retry logic if submission fails. And here's my requirements that I needed from the National Weather Service API. And so I did this all in Cursor, and not that what this slide means anything to folks, but you can see this was the platform I did it in, and bam, we had a fingerprint up and running. And from my idea to implementation took me 1 hour and 30 minutes to get streaming weather data on chain. And if you look at the browser today or the Explorer, you can see my fingerprints coming in. Why is there an intermittent timing between them? Because sometimes the temperature doesn't change here in Denver. If it's 67 degrees for 3 hours, there's going to be no change to the API call. But if it goes up 1 degree, bam, we get a fingerprint there. And so I think that I just want to challenge folks right now that it's a sort of a call to arms. Let's get data on chain, show it's possible. Dave built fingerprint for images, which is super cool. Drag an image, puts it on chain, spits the image back out with the digital evidence link and proof of authenticity embedded in the metadata of the image, which is awesome. So what I did is I have a website, personal website. I took my image, I authenticated it, I re-uploaded it. So now the image that's living on my website has a digital fingerprint of authenticity and ownership from the API, which is pretty cool. So, so yeah, maybe I'll hand it back over to Dave. If you want to chat about through anything that may have inspired you through this section.
Anybody that missed it, I popped up on the screen there, digitalevidence.constellationnetwork.io, and there's a dashboard you can log in, and you can see all of the streaming fingerprints coming through onto the network, which is pretty cool. And I'll share that again, certainly. But yeah, Dave, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to just riff a little bit on what Benjamin built, because some people say, well, it's just an exercise to get some stuff on chain. What are you going to do with that? But then I had some, a product I'm going to talk about soon is called Real Estate Ledger, which does stuff for real estate. One of our early adopters is a builder. He builds communities and things like that. And one of his requirements is at a construction site, he needs to monitor that weather, and he needs to report that on a daily basis about rainfall and some other things that, I don't know all the details, but he's like, well, can I just hook up a weather gauge and have that throw stuff on chain, and then I can just auto print these things every morning? So he needs to post it at the job site. But then the people who walk around and check all this stuff, you can just give them a link to it. So, after they establish a bit of trust, they can just monitor this stuff at all of those sites without having to get their boots dirty.
Well, think about this too, Dave. I mean, tokenized real estate, right? And, I think Benjamin, probably you remember, and I'm sure Dave, you do too as well. When real estate and bringing the $300 to $400 trillion real estate industry on chain was initially what NFTs were NFTs were supposed to do, and that obviously didn't happen. And I think the reason that didn't happen, and I think that I do think the real estate will come on chain, like all of the world's real estate at some point. But there's so many factors to it where real estate isn't a static asset. Like the value of your property changes literally, probably minute to minute, if you were to like really get down into it. What's interesting to me is like you have something like digital evidence, and then you have real estate, and being able to eventually probably, cut out a lot of the middle processes by literally just like, okay, I want to take a snapshot of the current state of my house. I updated this. I put on a back deck, and I paid X amount to put on a back deck. In my region, what does that potentially add to my house? There's all sorts of things to make your asset, I don't want to say more liquid, but the ability to update the state of your asset more fluid, if that makes sense. And sorry to interrupt again, but my head started spinning.
It's you're paving the way for me here. So talking about what's the future of digital evidence. So this month, I don't have an exact date, but in the coming days or maybe a week and a half, we'll have this generally available, right? Up until today, and including today, it's still early access, so people have to fill out a form to request access. We'll launch the generally available platform. You can come in, you can self-serve, create an account, do subscriptions, and you're off and running. We've tested this quite a bit, so it should be pretty straightforward. Later in the same month, there's a product. So that's self-serve. We also, through Benjamin runs our business development here at Constellation, we have some partnerships. So Real Estate Ledger, which is, full disclosure, owned by Constellation Network, but has external investors. That's doing what you just described with real estate, right? So you collect all that information, you put on a back deck, all right? So what did it cost? Who worked on it? Who built it? What permits did you have to pull to get it done? What inspections? All that stuff goes into Real Estate Ledger, which is back-ended by digital evidence. And so then you have all that information. You can do those, real-time assessments of your property value. But then those builders have a sense, I want to use insurance lightly, but a sense of assurance that later on, if there's a problem with the deck and you say, well, you didn't do this, they're like, well, you have the documents, it's all on chain. Yes, I did. Or, oops, the permit was wrong or something like that. So you have that truth. But then imagine you want to go and sell your house. Well, instead of doing these onesie-twosie things or handing the new buyer a box of receipts that you had in your closet, it's all on chain. You can transfer that seamlessly. And now they have a user guide to the property. They can understand, oh, the deck was built it's out of warranty, all this other stuff, but I can call the person who installed it and ask them some questions. Maybe they can make some improvements, replace a few boards or something like that. So we're really, really excited about this. This goes along that journey to tokenization, right? When you're looking at one of the issues, one of the inspirations I had for Real Estate Ledger was looking at real estate tokenization and realizing there's proof of ownership. That's ironclad, right? That's handled. But there's no proof of management. Every tokenization for a real estate company I researched had a line in there, our trusted property managers. I'm like, well, cool, you trust them, but why should I? Show me why I should trust them. Proof of management is what Real Estate Ledger can give you. You can see that, when they put a deck on, there was appropriate permits. You can see that they've, done maintenance on the furnace every year. You could see that there's all the warranties are uploaded and listed, so you can understand where it was, where it was covered and where it wasn't, so on and so forth. So getting back to the future of digital evidence, this is one application where you can see there's a Web3 component of it, that immutability of that data, but there's a lot of non-Web3 technology and use cases that go into it. And that's part of the whole thing, right? We're not purists, right? We do a really good job with our Web3 technology, but we realize this helps everything get better. And so that's what we're trying to do. And we have another solution coming to market, or actually it's already built and available on forensic accounting. So, TemTrace is a partnership that Benjamin, well, he could probably speak to it better than I. He's the one that started it and is leading it, but that's also built on digital evidence, and it uses us to have that immutable ledger for the accounting platform that TemTrace is built on.
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny because a lot of folks, when they think of blockchain, they think of, crypto finance, but using immutable ledger technology in the true blockchain sense of the term against financial operations is really the sweet spot here, right? The amount of money, and I had no idea, and time that folks spend on managing the forensics and auditing of telecommunication expense management and technical or technology. If, say, ExxonMobil orders 50,000 mobile phones for their workforce, like, were they delivered? Was there a gap in pricing? Was it fulfilled? A lot of these things that we rely on, these sort of traditional systems, they fall short. I had no idea. And so having something that shows a delta between when something happens and hits the system versus other events that happen in that smart workflow, was it delivered? Was it returned? Did it get to the right spot? Having all that stuff on chain not only cuts down that audit experience exponentially by saving money, but it also highlights fraud or things that might get people in litigation or hot water. Furthermore, it allows them to completely pull the needed information for compliance reporting that happens at the end of the year, that they can have that stuff. Sometimes they have so many forms that they may miss a couple and they get fined. Right? I've heard that most of these Fortune 500 companies, they almost get fined every time when it comes to the compliance reporting, just because of the complexity and the guardrails required in an amount of time to do that audit. By having TemTrace in place with digital evidence backing, it really flows that stuff in real time, giving them that sense of relief that this is automated. They don't have to worry about it. That alone has huge value, not to mention the cost savings from the forensic hours, as well as finding the gotchas that really have hurt companies. So it's a beautiful, beautiful use case that I think is going to open up people's minds and eyes once they see more of it in action here. So very proud of that.
If I could,
yeah.
I guess just, so what's next for digital evidence beyond this? We'll keep fostering these relationships where, like with the TemTrace, the real estate ledger, there's a lot of code that went around that wasn't Web3 that we were consulting, advising, and helping, in some cases actually doing. But then also this self-serve model is available, and we're going to do whatever we can to nurture and support that. We'll build more functionality, right? We keep it simple is a big deal for us, but we'll build more functionality into the API, some additional non-subscription pay models, things like that, and really just try to keep this going.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, maybe you can share my screen while we take this thing home here in the last few minutes. Just one thing I hear.
Load it back up for me, Benjamin, if you can.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No problem.
I'll give us a segue. I think as you load it up, let me get it up here. I think what's really interesting is, I just got out of a call when we were talking about digital documentation and kind of the, global supply chain and all this other stuff. But my head leads towards exactly what you were saying, Benjamin, which is, look, the intangibles of what happens when you streamline all of these processes that go on traditionally are only intangibles until they become tangible. Until we start bringing things on. And what I mean by that is, when you start really bringing stuff online and really updating processes, you don't even necessarily know how much is going to be saved, because you're in turn probably also creating entirely new business models and all sorts of stuff, which I think it's like really fascinating, because I truthfully believe that at some point in time, the majority of everything probably runs on blockchain in some way, shape, or form. We're probably a long ways away from that. But at the end of the day, when you have a level of transparency and accountability over every process, those are things that you can't even measure right now, but those are things that 1000% you'll be able to measure in the future when it actually happens. So it's like, the stuff that you're talking about, it's like really interesting to me, Benjamin, because I literally think about that stuff all the time, how crazy it is, the future society that we're headed towards. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I think it's a great point, just in the fact that society isn't painting with this brush because we haven't had this tool set with us up to this point. So I've heard it from so many people. There are endless use cases for this. So to that, it puts a lot of pressure on us to focus, right? And so one of the first things we've been really focused on from an industry perspective is first responders. And I just want to show some of this, marketing materials, how we're really going after that, because it's one of the most contested data environments in America, around the globe, really. I'm working with governments and specific groups I can't talk about on the federal side around proof of movement or on GPS sensors. They haven't let go of that. That's a boondoggle we've been after for years. Not a boondoggle, it's a killer use case around preventing spoofing, to show digital evidence around proof of movement, that it hasn't been stored, and that this aircraft or car or whatever is exactly where it's supposed to be. I mean, think about the market of liquor fraud. It's huge. People don't even know how big that is, right? There's so many areas that just kind of in perpetuation have just been sort of messy, because we haven't had this magic elixir to be able to say, hey, if we just put this at your source data and it works alongside your existing workflows, my word, the amount of benefits you can get from this stuff running in the background. And it's just been absolutely awesome to see the, open arms we've had from commercial industry saying, holy shit, we actually need something like this. But then they have to have that education, to Dave's point earlier, around nodes and how this whole thing works. But, nobody knows what URL stands for in a search bar, but yet for some reason we have to explain every nook and cranny of how blockchain works. But so yeah, those are my final statements for today. But Dave, do you have anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Let's keep building. Let's keep doing this and solving the problems that we want to solve. Digital evidence is one tool in a bigger system, right? And we need to have the humility, but also the creativity and the ambition to take that and do cool things with it. And so, yeah, let's keep building, people.
I want to mention too, just briefly, because I know we're at the end here, is when you think about the types of different industries that can kind of, that are going to start coming on chain. Like even when you mention, GPS and data spoofing and stuff like that, and you mentioned aircraft. I mean, most people don't even realize there's right now 520,000 counterfeit parts installed annually in aircraft. That's out of 26 million parts in that supply chain. About 2% of total parts are counterfeit parts. That's horrifying. And then you think about maintenance and maintenance personnel and certifications and all of these different things that are like running through these just super paper-based processes. You guys are in an interesting position where you can literally kind of choose whatever you want to potentially build out for use case for digital evidence. But more importantly, having a builder program that makes it easier for other people that might have problems that they want to solve to use it without having to have a PhD in coding and different coding languages to be a blockchain developer. So Benjamin and Dave, I really appreciate you guys joining today. You guys can go and check out more about digital evidence at digitalevidence.constellationnetwork.io. Give Temtrace a follow at Temtrace with TEMTRACE 2024. realestateledger.io if you want to sign up. And thank you to Constellation for helping us to put together these podcasts as always. Thank you, guys.
You're on.
Thank you,
bud.